Hello, all, and welcome. We are back with another episode in our series, Coaching for Transformation. I'm once again joined by Executive Coach, COO, and Chief Learning Strategist of Minaya Learning Global Solutions, Susan Minaya. Today's episode dives into a core leadership capability that often determines whether ideas gain traction, teams align, and leaders succeed: power and influence. Stay tuned to learn more. Susan, we are back again. Hello.
Hello, Dario.
All right, episode 2. So, Susan, power and influence. It can sound like corporate buzzwords, honestly
True.
speaking. But I know you have a much deeper take on this. So let's get into it. What do you mean when you say leaders need to master power and influence? Isn't that just about authority or charisma?
That's a common misconception for sure. And I agree with you that it does sound like corporate speak a little bit, power and influence, but it's super important. And in coaching, it isn't about hierarchy or dominance. It's really about the ability to shape outcomes, build trust with others, and move people forward toward shared goals. It's how really you create alignment, gain buy-in, and inspire follow-through without relying on your title alone, right? Where the ego is big. I think in practice, it means knowing your audience really well, reading the moment, and choosing the right approach, whether it's asking questions, whether it's negotiating, you do it through storytelling or through collaboration.
Okay, all right. Well, what are the core principles behind strong influence, especially in one-on-one situations?
Yeah, well, I think that's a great question. So, influencers, good ones, live by some key truths, right? First off, effective influence starts with empathy. You really need to understand others' perspectives and aligning your message with their values and motivations because they care about what they want. They don't necessarily care about what you want, right? So, this approach fosters trust and collaboration and essential components that are really needed for a successful relationship and also for successful leadership. So, you have to be able to come to the table with an open mind and really understanding or wanting to hear what's in it for the other person and what are they really wanting out of the experience. Second, influence demands courage for the person who wants to influence to actually communicate openly and with clarity about what they're wanting to get out of this situation. Leaders who express their goals transparently are way more likely to inspire trust and drive meaningful action with others. And if you think about, I know I've talked before about radical collaboration, like what a powerful book that is. And as I say, always go to the trade show, and you always want to go to the trade show. You always want to go and talk to people. Let's hear what you have to say. So communication is super important in this context. And then thirdly, sustainable influence is really grounded in being intentional about what you're doing, having a sense of responsibility for the interaction and the relationship, and really a consistent practice of ethical leadership. Trust serves as really the cornerstone of this influence, cultivated through transparency, reliability, and empathetic engagement. So all the things I just shared with you have to do with relationship, right? How are we communicating? How are we interacting? And how are we being curious and open to one another's perspective? When we talk about power and influence, understand that when we influence as a leader within an organization, it's not a one-time act. And that's what's really important to understand. So a leader's influencing capabilities and effectiveness are really based on repeated interactions with others over and over again through different projects, through different initiatives, through different things that they're trying to get done as a leader. And leveraging these principles of empathy, transparency, collaboration, ethics, reliability, and follow-through are really important in framing their credibility within the organization, their relationships with others so that people will hear them, which also in turn builds their power base because people trust them and they depend on them and they know that they're dependable.
Well, I definitely want to touch on something you mentioned, which is communication, right? How does someone build flexibility and presence so that others naturally listen, follow, and support them?
Communication is the underpinning, I think, of influence and power because communication flexibility is what makes you powerful because you have the ability to shift with where the other people are going. It's about reading the room and adapting your style to meet the needs of the people that you're trying to influence or persuade, right? So whether it's being direct or whether you're using data or whether you're appealing emotionally to someone's values or inspiring through vision, these are all important ways that leaders are flexible in how they communicate. And executive presence, it's not just confidence or polish. It's really the ability to be seen, heard, and trusted in key moments by others. Especially for women, Dario, I found this requires intentionality, asking for feedback, identifying signature strengths that they may have, and learning to navigate power dynamics authentically and assertively. Because for many women leaders, the power and influencing, and even for male leaders as well, it's like that power thing. People kind of go into the ego part of it and not necessarily really understanding it's more about relationship than anything else.
Yeah. Relationship versus self, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, Susan, you coach leaders through high stakes one-on-one influence conversations. What does that actually look like?
It starts with clarity.
That's
Who are you
important.
trying to influence? Because, every situation's different. Everyone's not the same.
Yeah, of course.
Am I trying to manage up? Am I trying to get something across the board from another business unit that I need help with? Am I trying to, get people to understand here's the new direction for the company and we're going there? So really, who are you trying to influence? What's your audience? And what's a specific outcome that you want? I think many times not enough time is really given to that audience analysis piece on communication, which is so critical because my message for one audience may not be anything I really need to be sharing with this other audience, right? That may be a higher level, executive level, as opposed to frontline employees or something like that. So really understanding how to frame that up. And from there, we explore what matters to that person. Do you understand what they're going to care about? So be thinking through the process. If they're listening to you, you be them. What are they thinking? Where is their brain going? How are they analyzing you? What's he saying? What does he want? What does this mean for me? Usually, so it's what everybody's thinking when any leader speaks to them, especially in large group settings where big announcements are often made, or even at the table when you're coming to negotiate for something. That's what the other person is thinking. What do they want from me? So there we go back to this trust factor that's absolutely essential for leaders. And then finally, once you get that, you'll understand what will make them listen and say yes or potentially change their behavior. So I'll often role play real conversations with the people I'm working with, I'm coaching. I'll rehearse objections with them so that they can kind of off the cuff try to practice how they're going to respond and even plan for what to do if things go off track, because sometimes they do, right? So you have to learn to be flexible in how to shift change. So communication is a skill and it's also an art. And it's about preparation more than anything else, and emotional agility and being able to do that and choosing your words with purpose. So over time, leaders really become more confident and strategic in these moments when they practice it and they're intentional about getting better at it.
Wow. I can imagine that makes those real world situations feel a lot smoother once they've gone through some of those simulations.
I love those simulations. I did it with one company where people had to actually do a communication for influence to persuade why you want to come and work with us instead of some other company. And so it was really insightful for them to be able to see how what seems so simple to share my value proposition was really actually very challenging for some. You get wrapped around the axle, which is why preparation is so critical. If the influencing discussion, sometimes it's informal influence and other times it's formal influence. And so leaders have to understand the difference between those two things.
Wow. So how can leaders think more strategically about their long-term influence beyond individual conversations?
Influence doesn't stop at the meeting table. It's shaped by relationships you build and your power base ultimately. So kind of the influencing factor really helps build your power base. And that includes who are your sponsors, who's your allies, people that'll help support you and advocate for you, who's your supporters, people will be there to get you ready, even the critics. So leaders need to have those people that do criticize what they're doing so that they're able to get that agility in how they respond to that, because that's really important, and who can actually become collaborators. Honestly, as a leader myself in organizations, I always made it my goal to turn my biggest critics into my biggest partners. Because when you do that, the relationships are so powerful and so strong. And it's amazing to watch it happen. But the reason you can turn the circumstance is because we listen. It's our communication and our listening skills and the empathy, which we went back to at the beginning of our conversation. So I often will have clients map their network, assess who's in their corner and where visibility may be lacking for them so they can start saying, okay, where do I need to kind of invest my time and energy into helping and getting to know people and also building relationship with people. And from there, we kind of coach toward an intentional presence, building credibility and relationship building that really begins to expand their influence as well as their network.
Wow. Susan, this has been incredibly insightful, honestly. And to everyone, if you're listening and wondering how to increase your impact as a leader, whether it's speaking with more conviction, navigating office politics, or building a stronger presence, these strategies will help you start. Thank you again, Susan, for sharing your wisdom and tools. And to our listeners, be sure to tune in next time as we explore communicating with impact, the third episode in our Coaching for Transformation series. Until next time.